What's up, guys? Here I am back at the charger, still welding away and trying to get this sheet metal finished. So I'm gonna bring you along with me, and we're gonna get this tail panel welded in fully and keep trudging forward. Here we go. Definitely can't afford AC/DC. So I'm trying to move around as much as I can on this welding, and the reason for that, and most of you probably already know, but I'm going to mention it for those of you who don't know, is when you're welding sheet metal, it'll warp real easy if you put too much heat concentration into one spot. Like say I just danced around here and just did these three, and then I for some reason went back over them. But the two pieces of metal, they're a lot more sturdy, but the idea is to just jump around. You know, maybe do one here, one there, and then one here, and then move over to this side. That's kind of how I do it. I've seen guys take an air hose with a blowgun and blow air on the puddle after it hardens. I don't believe in that theory or way. It's just not my preference. So I would just prefer to just jump around, and instead of putting too much heat in one spot, and basically it just warps the metal. It'll give you more body work to do in the end. So I'm trying to avoid that. But the reality is it's really it's not going to work unless you really go after it too hard in one spot. Or at least I haven't had a problem with it warping, but then again, my experience is a bit limited. And that should help you know that my experience is limited, and I'm doing this, and according to the experts out there, Dodge Chargers are one of the most difficult sheet metal jobs to do. And I can confirm that, having been in the midst of this project for 6 months now. So it's a lot, and especially if you want to do it correct and the best way possible, it takes a lot of planning. So, as you may have already known. And what I'm doing with the hammer is, after I remove the screw, if I see any sort of gap in between the two panels that sandwich together, I'm just basically taking the top piece and bending it down so it bonds better with the lower piece. So notice how I skipped over the end here. So I wanted to keep this flat, so I kept the one on the end in its place, and I skipped to the second one. And I believe that keeps it more secure until I have it burned in. And then once this guy is burned in, it'll hold the rest of it. And if it curls up a little bit, I'll hit it with the hammer. But that's just how I do it. But I'm sure everyone else has their technique, but that's mine. get a wrench. Couldn't get my socket in there to get this one guy out. Riveting, I know. It's always that one. All right, this is, I know it's just too boring. Hold on. So, one reason why not to use these big tech heads, I know I said to use it in the beginning, I take it back. The heads are just too big and they make too big of a hole. The hole's not really what I'm worried about because I can get a good burn through with the hole just by patching up the hole, because it'll just bond the two pieces together real well. But as you can see, I had to tack another weld to the left of the head, and it's keeping that flange down and it won't allow it to back out. So I'm just going to hit it with my grinder when I knock these welds down, and it should make quick work of it. But yeah, it's jammed underneath here as well. So yeah, these things have their place. If in hindsight, I'd probably just use the button heads though, with the little Stinger Phillips head screws. But those have their downsides too. So anyway, thought I'd mention it. On these little guys, they're just these little, ow, damn it, wow, they went right through my glove. They're kind of, that's what I get for cheating a little, man. Wow. These little brackets right here, they're tail light reinforcement brackets. They're kind of irrelevant, but they belong there from the factory, so I'm putting them in. So, but yeah, I'm just clamping them as I go. It's not a big deal to me anyway. I gotta get in here and lay in the trunk and touch up inside the tail panel. So I'm gonna finish weld these guys when I'm in there. But I'm gonna start knocking these welds down. So I'm not gonna show you that. You guys have seen people grind before. So I'll be right back. Straight. So, I know I've said this before, but you see how I'm kind of jumping around here? It's basically just to keep the heat from being concentrated into one area, and it'll warp the sheet metal pretty easily. But let's face it, I mean, this is an inner fender well, so I'm really just practicing good practice. And for those obviously who don't know and have never done sheet metal, just trying to help you guys understand how this all works. It's really straightforward, but the outcome, you always want it to be as good as it can be. And you know, obviously we do things here as good as our talent level allows us. I guess that makes sense, but it's all kind of obvious. And now we're getting into this corner here, and it's going to require some fiddling with the screwdriver and welding it. So make sure still have a good fit here. It's actually pretty good. Yeah, it's a little low in some spots, but I'd say it's good. It's all gonna get ground flat anyway, so. I like this thing because it creates less heat because it has a small contact patch on it. If you're using like a roll-lock disc, those will create a little bit more heat. This thing doesn't work in every instance. Sometimes it's just not wide enough. But in this case, I think it's probably the smarter tool to use. But I did bring the other one just in case. And I'm not putting a lot of concentration on these welds. I'm really just trying to expose the holes that I missed. And it's the same thing as far as the heat goes, or the heat you're putting into it. Same thing goes for grinding. Grinding creates heat, so you really have to jump around and not stay in one spot for a very long time. And again, I'm just knocking this stuff down so I can see where the holes are, or where I need to stitch. So, I took my light, I put it on the other side of this patch, and what that's going to reveal is the holes. So when you can't see them, you don't know where to patch, obviously. But so now I can see light through these holes, and I know where to go.